Fresh meat.
A mentally unstable man is put on an old, soiled mattress. The doctor hands him a razor, and the man begins to slash himself over and over and over again. Arms and legs emerge out of the mattress to grab onto the man as he bleeds all over. Beneath him, a face slowly emerges out of the mattress. It has no skin, but as it opens its eyes and a smile spreads across its face as if in total ecstasy. This is one of the early, graphic, and gory scenes in HELLBOUND, HELLRAISER 2. As with any horror sequel, this movie looked to up the gore factor, but what extremes do you have to go to when the first film is Hellraiser? Director Tony Randall wanted to take the intimate first film and push it into a cosmic hellscape with bigger ideas and even bigger set pieces. With this, we go to hell itself to explore where the Cenobites came from and the length some will go to find the ultimate secrets of pain itself. With that, it's time to find out what the happened to this horror movie with HELLBOUND, HELLRAISER 2. While the first Hellraiser was still in post-production, New World Pictures could easily see that it would be a hit film and greenlit a sequel. Barker had already moved on to other things, but he was still heavily involved with producing the movie and turned to Tony Randall to take over the director's chair.
I think Tony's vision, Tony's grasp of not just of horror filmmaking and its various techniques, but of science fiction as well, will bring a new flavor to bear on the lament configuration, on the Cenobites, on all of that.
Having worked together before, Barker knew he could trust Randall to push the story forward without him breathing down his neck the whole time. In HELLBOUND, HELLRAISER 2, we open on Elliot Spencer, Doug Bradley out of makeup, trying to open the puzzle box. Unfortunately for him, it works, and he is pulled into hell. There, he is transformed into the being we've all come to love, Pinhead. From there, we jump to the present. After the horrible events that killed her father and evil stepmother in the first film, Kirsty has been remanded to a psychiatric hospital. She pleads her case, but is seen as just another crazy person. Well, by everyone but Dr. Channard. While being a successful man of science, he has had his eye towards the occult and has become obsessed with the secrets of the underworld. To further his pursuit, he gains possession of the bloodstained mattress that Julia died on. He offers it the sacrifice we talked about earlier, and Julia is brought back to life in all her skinless glory. Witness to this without Channard, knowing is his assistant Kyle. He now returns to the hospital and tells Kirsty that he believes her. Together, they go to Channard's house, where we now see that Julia is almost successfully reformed after Channard had brought her some more patients. Kyle gets trapped by Julia and is drained by her. Channard returns home with another patient, who just happens to be Kirsty's new BFF from the hospital, Tiffany. She is mute and a savant at puzzles. After she opens the puzzle box, the Cenobites arrive and open the portal to hell. Pinhead decides that Tiffany is innocent of opening the box, as she was used as Channard's tool to open it, and he is the one who should be taken to hell. Channard and Julia travel into the depths of the dimension. It is an unrelenting labyrinth that is ruled over by Leviathan, a sentient giant form of the puzzle box in a diamond form. Channard realizes that this universe is beyond his comprehension and wants to leave.
Oh my God.
Julia, instead, pushes him into another chamber where he is tortured, deformed, and becomes a new Cenobite. Kirsty travels into hell to find Tiffany. Once there, she sees her father's old house and enters, hoping to find him. Unfortunately for her, all that she finds is Frank, who is once again trying to escape from the clutches of hell. Julia shows up and relieves Frank of his heart. Kirsty and Tiffany escape once again, but Channard shows up to grab Tiffany. The Cenobites actually protect her, per Pinhead's statement before about her being innocent. New Cenobite Channard easily dispatches with them, and they return to their previous human forms. As you can see, there was a gigantic story they were trying to tell compared to the small story of Frank invading an unsuspecting family while being chased by Hell's Cenobites in the first film.
Remember.
This vast story would need a bigger budget, and New World Pictures was eager to provide it. Just as cameras were about ready to roll, New World's financial issues started to catch up with them, and the budget ended up getting cut. While some of the big set pieces survived this, a few smaller scenes ended up getting scrapped out of the film. While the film opens with the curious Elliot Spencer opening the puzzle box and succumbing to his torture, there was supposed to be a bigger subplot surrounding the Elliot Spencer character. This would have explored how Spencer would have ended up with the puzzle box and how he ended up becoming Pinhead in further detail. It all had to be scrapped before shooting, and the opening scene was all that remained. This would end up getting picked up and explored more as part of Hellraiser 3. This also led into a larger subplot, showing how all the Cenobites used to be regular humans that had given in to the call of the puzzle box. Barker wanted to explore this idea more in the sequel. We get small glimpses of this as the Cenobites are destroyed by Channard towards the end of the film. The backstories were supposed to be a bigger part of the story, but ended up getting cut before filming happened. With the Chatterer, a scene that explained his renewed eyesight was cut in the editing room. In the first film, the character had no eyes. This caused the actor problems, as in costume, he couldn't see, couldn't talk with his prosthetic teeth, and could barely hear. For the second time around, he requested that the character have eyes. They built the explanation into the film, which is why the beginning of the film has the original design, but later he appears with eyes. Lots of fans have been irked by this design change since the film came out. Since it was a storyline of his return sight, maybe they would have been far more forgiving.
Oh, Kirsty. So eager to play. So reluctant to admit it.
During the scene where he is killed off by Channard, the character falls back onto the wooden pillar, where he is impaled and spins until the camera reveals his original form of a young boy. Just as the camera shut off, one of the hooks dangling by the chains from the ceiling ended up grabbing hold of his mouth. People that were there commented it had been the absolute perfect scenario for it to happen. The hook managed to get into his mouth just as he opened it, went past the prosthetic teeth that were on the front of his mouth, past any layered foam around his mouth, and catch on the inside of his cheek. He says the only thing he could say was, "Teeth out, nurse in." Other actors on the film joke that he has dined out on that story for decades now. Kenneth Cranham, who played Dr. Channard, was also doing a play in London at the time with Gary Oldman. When he told Oldman about the film, he said he was jealous, as he would love to play the part in a horror film. 4 years later, Oldman went on to play the title character in Dracula. It looks like he got his wish, and really we could use more Gary Oldman in good horror films.
I like these calm little moments before the storm.
One of the original actors that returned from the first film was Oliver Smith. He was the actor that was slim enough to fit into the skinless Frank suit for the first film. Since he was only seen with no skin, it was easy to fit him back into these two roles for the film. He showed up as the skinless man in Kirsty's vision of her father. Here, he basically looks the same as he did in the first film, but his identity is mistaken by Kirsty for her father. This leads her to go to hell and look for him while trying to protect Tiffany. His other role let him wear a lot fewer prosthetic pieces, as he was the mental patient Channard uses to resurrect Julia in the hard-to-watch mattress scene. In the documentary, Leviathan, the story of Hellraiser and Hellbound, Hellraiser 2, he said these scenes were a lot of fun to shoot. When inserted into the film, I don't know if they seem like much fun, but they got the intended results out of them. One original actor who opted not to return was Andrew Robinson. The character of Larry Cotton was featured heavily in the end of the original script for the film. Kirsty was to have found him when she finds Frank in the finished film. It would be discovered that Frank and Larry are actually joined together by the arm as conjoined twins. Here, they were both tortured for Frank's misdeeds. They would be forced apart, and Larry would help Kirsty and Tiffany escape hell. He would have been the one to kill Julia. This would lead to him having a heart attack, which would see him rush to the hospital. There are some claims that this led to the infamous deleted Pinhead surgeon scene that many fans have wondered about for decades. On the original VHS box and other promotional artwork, there are pictures of Pinhead and the female Cenobite in doctor's scrubs. The rumors began that a surgery scene was so gnarly it had to be cut in order to be released. This turned out not to be true when the scene was finally found on an old VHS workprint and included in the box set from Arrow Films. When presented with the script, Andrew Robinson said he felt there really wasn't much for his character to do in the film and opted not to return. For screenwriter Peter Atkins, he said he was actually happy that Robinson didn't return. He claims that he loves Robinson as a person and as an actor, but he never liked the idea that the character of Larry was in hell. He states that in his mind, Larry would have gone to heaven after he was killed by Frank and Julia. Having him stuck in hell made no sense to him, and this easily reverted to Frank being stuck in hell and trying to make Kirsty think her father was there so she would release him. Even after all the pitfalls, budget cuts, and non-returning actors, Hellbound, Hellraiser 2 still managed to finish production. In the end, and expanded on the scope and characters of the original. Its next roadblock was the dreaded MPAA. Upon its first submission, the MPAA gave it the X rating. This means their advertising opportunities are pretty much non-existent. While it did take a few small cuts, they were finally able to get it down to an R rating. Barker thinks this was due to him preferring to show explicit displays of the grotesque rather than hinting at it. Even if Barker was right, one critic was not a fan of the film, and that was Roger Ebert. He said, quote, "The images have been constructed with a certain amount of care and craftsmanship. The technical credits on this film run to 4 single-spaced pages. We see lots of bodies that have been skinned alive so that the blood still glistens on the exposed muscles. We see creatures who have been burned and mutilated and twisted into grotesque shapes and condemned for eternity to unspeakable and hopeless tortures. But this movie violates more rules than the first rule of repetition. It also violates a basic convention of story construction, which suggests that we should get at least a vague idea of where the story began and where it might be headed. This movie has no plot in a conventional sense. It is simply a series of ugly and bloody episodes strung together one after another like a demo tape for a perverted special effects man." He says that like it's a bad thing. Hellbound Hellraiser 2 would go on to be cheered by horror fans everywhere. It was a true example of expanding on the characters and the mythos of the original film. What they didn't know was that the series was headed down a dark path, as the Weinsteins would soon get their hands on the franchise and drive it into the ground. I think we can all agree that someone who seems to put his selfish, earthly pleasures above all else would be so deserving of a visit from our pin-headed friend to be pulled down to the absolute depths of torture and pain. F***ing Weinsteins. Anyway, thank you for watching our show. If you like what you see, please subscribe to our JoBlo Videos channel. Tell your friends who like this sort of content, and turn on the bell to receive notifications for all our latest videos. We are an independent company, and we appreciate your support. And if you have any suggestions for future episodes, please leave them in the comments below.
I went to a wake on the soaked streets of Blue Island. And my father, though a strong man, you know, I swear I saw him crying. Another generation gone has ceased south siding. When you say a prayer and you put him in the ground, you speak a whiskey and it's mark 'em bound. Ain't no new shit going down on the soaked streets of Blue Island.